Hello, this is Dr. Mike, and I wanted to share some things with you in this first lecture this morning in the way of introduction to our new class that is just starting, and hopefully will be helpful to you as you navigate the class and understand something about psychology and its importance in our business life and our personal life. Psychology is kind of one of those far-reaching fields. When we talk about how people think or how they act or what they do, it's really interesting to kind of delve deeper into their psyche, if you will, and try to understand those things that would be important to understand about someone. If you've ever dealt with anyone maybe that had Alzheimer's, or you dealt with someone that had some other mental issue, you realize how frustrating it is to try to get people to do things or to say things or to think or to realize, and you realize that we've studied these different actions, and it's very helpful. I often say that if I could change my entire education, if I had to give up my entire education for one class, it would be a class in psychology, because I find psychology to be such a helpful study. And I've spent a lifetime using counseling. I was a pastor for 20 years, and I have an undergraduate in psychology, and I have used that over and over through the years in my ministry and other aspects, and in helping students or whatever. There's always something in psychology that will be helpful in understanding, whether it be developmental psychology, where you study the different lifespans and the how people think and operate in those, or whatever. There's always something there to think about. So as you go through this week, I hope these lectures on each of the chapters will be something that will be helpful to you, and that you will find meaningful, not only just in this class to get through class, but also to help you in your work world and in your day-to-day life. Let me move now to the slides and talk to you about chapter 1, which is the introduction to the chapter. And I think you'll find some things here that will be very, very helpful to you. We start out by talking about what we kind of hope to learn in this chapter. And we want to define psychology. We want to describe what psychologists do. I always find a lot of interest in this class about how do you take the things that we learn and apply them in the world of work. I have a young friend who has just finished his clinical psychology degree, his doctor's degree. He's now treating patients. And of course, there's a difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is actually a medical doctor who has additional training in psychology. And as such, he is able to prescribe medications. Psychologist usually works with a psychiatrist to do that, because he cannot prescribe medication. He is not a medical doctor. He may have a doctor's degree in psychology, but he doesn't have the pharmacological training or the medical training. So we'll talk about some of that as we go on through the field. We're going to talk about different theoretical perspectives or models that psychologists work from. Those are very different models today than they were when I started in psychology in 1975. I went back and finished that degree in 2005. It was amazing, the difference. In my day when I started, psychology was a social science. And when I went back, it had become a full-blown science and had become about testing and labeling and all those different things. And so it's a very different field today than it was in 1975. And I'm sure since 2005, when I did my undergrad, that it's probably equally has changed as much. Psychologists engage in a great deal of research, including methods of observation, how you correlate different things, and then they do experimentation to learn something about behavior, to learn about mental processes. And so those are important. We'll also talk about the ethical standards that govern psychological practice. Some things just can't be done because they're unethical. They shouldn't be done. Doesn't mean they aren't done sometimes, but they should not be done because they're considered unethical. And then we'll talk about some processes of critical thinking that I think will be helpful to you. So let's start first with the scientific study. Psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. And so as we look at this, we think about what is the goal? The goal of psychology is to describe, explain, predict, and control behavior and mental processes to make things as clear as possible, that you can understand why someone behaves the way that they do. when we think about, the theory of psychology, we want to, it allows us to propose reasons for relationships among events. We can never truly, I don't think 100% understand someone, how they behave, how they act. And Dr. Spurgeon Cole, my old teacher from years ago, I was taking him for a psychology of religion class, and I'll never forget his opening statement. He said, more people are attracted to two fields, psychology and religion, than any of the two fields. They come to psychology hoping to explain why they behave the way they do. And then they come to religion hoping they're going to get out of the mess and have a better life in the world to come. And I found that to be, pretty accurate. We want to kind of derive some explanations. Why are we the way we are? And maybe we can make a few predictions about that. But psychological theories kind of combine statements about behavior, mental processes, biological processes. And these are all very interesting for us to deal with as human beings. Human beings are a different animal than the rest of the kingdom because we're the ones who literally think critically, kind of posit our actions and follow through and get things done. But psychologists actually conduct research, and there are two kinds of that. There's pure research just for the sake of knowing. And then, of course, there's applied research in the field of schizophrenia, for example. There'll be research trying to develop a line of drugs that will help people that are schizophrenic or bipolar or ADHD, any of a number of issues that come under the heading of psychology in the mind will be there. They also, most times, practice psychology. They see patients, they do counseling, and then they teach others how to do that. The thing that surprises many of my students is that there are so many different fields of psychology. It's not just psychology. You can major in any one of these. I call them postage stamps, and spend your lifetime working in them. There's clinical, which is about diagnoses. There's counseling. There's a school of psychology. There's educational psychology about how we learn. Developmental psychology about how we develop as we go through the different life phases from prenatal all the way through to geriatrics. Each one of those stages have a different psychological aspect to it. There's personality. There's an entire field of studying a person's personality. There's social psychology, how we interact and interrelate with others. There's environmental psychology, experimental, industrial, organizational. There's even human factors now. Consumer psychology. Why do you buy the things that you do? We'll talk about some of that as we get started. Health psychology, forensic psychology, very interesting field that if I had to do it over again, I probably might would have considered doing forensic psychology because of its importance to the field. That's the one where you basically go to a crime scene and look at the crime scene, almost like Criminal Minds, if you remember Criminal Minds. Sports psychology is a new field and it's growing. The history of psychology is almost as old as man himself. It goes all the way back to the Greeks like Aristotle or Democritus or Socrates. All of these three men basically spent time thinking about why we think and thinking about thinking, which is unique to the human family. More than 2,000 years ago, Aristotle wrote a book on psychology with contents very similar to the one you're reading in this course. And of course, that is true. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates suggested a research method that is still used in psychology today, and that's true. So this is a very, very old science. Now, psychology as a field today in university study did not become such a field until about the late 1800s with Sigmund Freud. We'll talk about, criminal psychology. We don't look at criminals as being, something to study their mind and their thinking until the 1800s. We basically used the biblical model before that of, they did it because they were sinners and all that stuff. But we began to abandon that theory and come up with other theories that that will be important. You're going to be looking at different models, and I'm not going to belabor the point this morning on the video for this because you're going to be reading about this. But psychology is a laboratory science, as I just said, goes back to about the mid 1800s, and the first real psychological laboratory 1879. And so we see all kind of different theories then, like structuralism, we see functionalism, and all these things are different aspects of how we kind of understand different things. Behavioralism, I'll stop just a moment to say that John Watson was interesting to me because he finished Furman University, which is near my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina, and went on to found this entire school of psychology focused on learning observable behaviors that are observable by specialized instruments. B.F. Skinner believed that learned behavior is behavior that's reinforced. You learn something, it's reinforced. This turns out to be probably how a newborn babies learn, where there's reinforcement. There's a stimulus that follows a response that then increases the frequency of that response. You want a child to repeat that behavior. For instance, potty training. You want that child to go to the potty every time, not just sometimes. So you reinforce when he or she does it properly. You reinforce that behavior by by giving them some kind of reward. Probably the biggest field of model of psychology would be Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis. It's a theory of personality, proposes that people's lives are influenced by unconscious ideas. And it is a method of psychotherapy. It helps patients to gain insight and understanding into their own, why they do certain things, helps people be more socially acceptable. Maybe you can't walk into a room without fear, or you can't speak to a woman, or whatever it is. It's ways to express wishes and to gratify certain needs. Freud also had different biological perspectives, and then we have Charles Darwin's theory, of course, about evolution and how that affects the human psyche as well. So basically, we're looking at a lot of different perspectives in this chapter. And I think you want to read through those today. And I encourage you to always read the textbook. Even if you don't understand what you are reading, it's always good to kind of be, be exposed to things, because you don't ever know when you'll come across it again. I want to mention to you, of course, the scientific method applied to psychology. This is important because it's the key to what we do in any kind of experimentation. But psychological theory, daily experiences, commonly held beliefs, we form research questions, we examine that question, or we have an hypothesis, and then we do testing, we look for evidence, we draw conclusions, we test again. Remember, for something to be involved in the scientific method, that there are certain things that have to be true about that, and that is that it be repeatable. You can do it over and over again, expecting to get the same results every time. So you can survey millions of voters and still not accurately predict the outcome of a presidential election. That's really true. You'll see psychology of that kind used in many presidential elections, and so be sure you pay attention to that as you read through. We're going to talk about case studies. In fact, you'll be involved in some of those case studies where we talk about the realities of what is going to happen in the business world. If you're in nursing, this is particularly important. This course is particularly important, I think, to you as a nurse, because you're going to have to deal with all kinds of different people along the journey of your career over the next 40 years. And so it is important that you kind of be aware of these studies. You're going to be faced with this for the rest of your business career and you're working. There's some key terms at the end that I would like for you to look through, because you're going to look at those in the chapter. There's actually 3 sections of these that are important. Know what they are roughly, and I think it would be very helpful to you. So in summary, psychology is the scientific study of behavior, mental processes. And the earliest known contributors to psychology were Aristotle, Democritus, and Socrates. There are several broad influential perspectives in psychology you're going to be reading about today. And then ethics review committee check for any potential harm done in research methods. There have been certain studies in which certain things were done that were harmful. And as a result, it's been, they've had to do some different things to change that. So hopefully you'll find great things to study and look at in this chapter. So basically, as you start chapter 1 today, be sure you read. You're going to read 4 chapters this week. So you need to be working consistently daily on your chapter. The quiz will cover the readings, and I think there are 10 questions, true and false, and multiple choice. I don't think you'll have a problem with those. But if you have any questions, please ask me. Let me know how I can be of help to you. And I look forward to this class as we develop it further. Thank you.